Sometimes what we call loss is not the end of the road. Sometimes it's life quietly pushing us towards something greater, something we never would have chosen on our own. But when loss first arrives, it never feels like a gift. It feels like something has been taken from us, something we depended on, something we trusted. And in that moment, all we can think is, why did this have to happen to me? This story begins with that exact feeling, a feeling of safety and the shock of losing it. And through it, we discover a powerful truth about hope, especially the kind that shows up only after everything seems to fall apart. High in the mountains, far from the noise of the world, there stood an old temple. Time had slowed there. Its marble walls were covered in moss. The courtyard lay silent, untouched by crowds or ceremony. And at the center of it all hung a massive bronze bell. Once, that bell called people to prayer. Once, it brought a whole village together. But for many, many years, it had not been rung. Dust covered its surface. The bell had become part of the quiet, forgotten, still, and seemingly without purpose. To the world, it was just an old object from the past. But to someone very small, it meant everything. Inside the hollow of that silent bell, a tiny sparrow would soon find safety, shelter from the storms, a place that felt secure, a place that felt like home. And that's how our lives often begin too, don't they? We find something that feels safe, a job, a relationship, a routine, a dream. And we build our world inside it, believing it will always protect us. But what happens when the bell finally rings? Today's story is about that moment. The moment comfort is shaken, the moment everything changes, and the moment we discover that what we thought was the end may actually be the beginning of something far greater. Inside the hollow of that silent bell, something small and fragile found what it believed would last forever. A tiny sparrow, light as a whisper of wind, discovered the empty space hidden within the bronze walls. To the world outside, the bell was forgotten, cold, still. But to her, it felt like a miracle. In the heat of summer, it was cool. When the rain fell, it stayed dry. When the wind howled through the mountains, the bell stood firm. No predators, no storms, no danger, just quiet protection. So she began to build. With a twig in her beak, then another, and another after that, she worked patiently. Feathers followed soft, warm, comforting. Day by day, her nest took shape. It wasn't grand. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. And as she worked, she felt something even more powerful than shelter growing inside her certainty. This is my safe place, she believed. Nothing can hurt me here. And so, life settled into a gentle rhythm. Each morning, she sang. Each afternoon, she rested. Each evening, she returned to the same small space, wrapped in the comfort she had built for herself. The bell had not rung for years, and in her heart, she was sure it never would. Have you ever felt like that? Like you finally found your place in the world? A job that feels secure, a relationship that feels stable, a routine that makes you think, this is it, I've made it through the hard part. And slowly, without realizing it, that place becomes more than comfort. It becomes identity. It becomes control. It becomes the thing you cling to, not because it's perfect, but because it's familiar. The sparrow grew emotionally attached to that hollow space, not just as shelter, but as her entire world. She didn't imagine anything beyond it. She didn't look for a better place. She didn't dream of wider skies. Because when you feel safe long enough, you start to believe safety is permanent. But here's the quiet truth of life that no one teaches us early enough. Comfort zones feel like protection, until the moment they become cages. And the sparrow didn't know it yet, but the bell that felt like her greatest security was also the very thing that would one day force her to fly beyond everything she thought she needed. For now, she rested in peace. Certain, unchanging, unaware that life was already walking toward the courtyard. And sometimes, that's exactly how change begins. Change rarely sends a warning before it arrives. One quiet morning, after many forgotten years, footsteps returned to the courtyard of the old mountain temple. The monks had come back. Time had passed, seasons had shifted, and with them came a simple decision, one that felt small to them, but would change a life forever. "It's time to ring the bell again," they said, "to call the villagers, to awaken the temple, to begin a new chapter." But inside the hollow of that bell, the sparrow knew nothing about new beginnings. She sat calmly in her nest, unaware that everything she trusted was about to disappear in a single heartbeat. And then, without warning, the hammer struck. Boom! The sound exploded through the air like thunder. The bronze walls shook with violent force. The nest trembled. Twigs burst apart. Feathers scattered into chaos. And in one sudden breath of noise and motion, the sparrow's entire world collapsed. She was thrown from her home without choice, without time to prepare, without understanding why. Can you imagine how confusing that kind of loss feels? One moment, you're safe. The next, everything you built is gone. She circled the courtyard in panic, her wings heavy with shock. Below her, the ruins of her nest lay scattered like broken promises, and inside her tiny chest, a question echoed louder than the bell itself. Why did this happen to me? What did I do wrong? Why would life take away the only place I had? Have you ever asked those same questions? When the job you trusted disappears, when the relationship you believed in falls apart, when the future you planned suddenly collapses without explanation. From the outside, others may call it change. But from the inside, it feels like betrayal. With fear weighing on her wings and despair tightening her breath, the sparrow fled the temple. No direction, no destination, only loss behind her and uncertainty ahead. The place she once believed was permanent had become unreachable in a single moment. And here's the painful truth most of us struggle to accept. Sometimes life doesn't remove things gently. Sometimes it doesn't explain. Sometimes it doesn't ask for permission. It just rings the bell. And as the sparrow disappeared into the open sky, she believed she was flying away from safety, when in reality, she was being pushed toward a future she could not yet imagine. But for now, all she felt was heartbreak. And heartbreak always feels like the end, even when it's actually the beginning. For the first time in her life, the sparrow had no home, no familiar shelter, no quiet corner to rest her tired wings, only open sky and questions she could not answer. Day after day, she wandered, from branch to branch, from valley to valley. The world felt endless now, not in a beautiful way, but in a frightening one. Food was scarce. Her body grew weaker. Hunger became a constant ache inside her chest. At night, the cold crept into her feathers, and loneliness wrapped around her like fog. Each dawn, she woke with less strength than the day before, and slowly, quietly, a dangerous thought began to form inside her. What if I can't go on? Have you ever reached that moment? When exhaustion is no longer just physical, when it settles into your spirit, when everything inside you whispers, stop trying. There were moments when the sparrow perched on a thin, trembling branch, her wings too heavy to lift. The world below her felt indifferent, silent, uncaring. She had lost everything she once trusted, and now even the act of continuing felt pointless. What was she flying for anymore? But then, in the quietest place inside her, something answered back. Not loudly, not confidently, just enough to be heard. Keep going. Not because she felt strong, not because she saw the future clearly, but because stopping meant surrendering to the darkness she was already drowning in. And so, with shaking wings and an uncertain heart, she chose to fly again. This is the part of the journey no one celebrates. Not the breakthrough. Not the victory. But the invisible moments where you keep moving while everything inside you is tired of hoping. We talk a lot about success. We talk a lot about confidence. But we rarely talk about this season, the season of wandering, the season where faith is quiet, the season where clarity is absent, the season where the only thing you can say is, I don't know where this leads, but I know I can't stay here. And somehow, that choice to move forward without answers is one of the bravest choices a soul can make. The sparrow didn't know where she was going. She only knew she could not return. She kept flying through fear, through doubt, through hunger, through the weight of everything she had lost. And though she couldn't see it yet, every uncertain flight was carrying her closer to the very place that would heal her. Sometimes the miracle doesn't come when you feel strong. It comes precisely when you choose to move forward while feeling completely broken. Just when the sparrow felt she could go no farther, something gentle called to her. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was the soft, steady sound of running water. At first, she wasn't sure if it was real or just another illusion born from exhaustion, but something inside her leaned toward it. And so, with the last of her fading strength, she followed that quiet sound through the trees. What she found on the other side of the forest felt like a secret meant only for the lost. The air was fresh, clean, in a way she had never breathed before. The heavy weight that had pressed against her chest for days began to lift. Sunlight filtered through the leaves like golden threads of hope. Along the edges of the clearing, berry trees stood full and overflowing. Real food, real nourishment, life waiting without resistance. Nearby, a clear stream moved with calm confidence, singing its endless song as it carved its path through stone and soil. And above her, the branches were thick, steady, and strong, perfect for building something new. The sparrow stood still in disbelief. After all her wandering, after all her hunger, after all her doubt, she had stumbled into abundance. Have you ever had that moment in your own life, where you look around after surviving something painful and think, if I had known this was waiting for me, I would have kept going sooner? Slowly, carefully, she explored the glade. Nothing here felt like survival. Everything felt like possibility. And for the first time since the bell shattered her world, she felt something she thought she had lost forever. Safety without confinement. Peace without fear of collapse. That's when a powerful realization settled into her spirit. This place, this hidden garden, was far greater than the hollow of the old bell had ever been. The bell had given her shelter, but this place gave her life. The bell had kept her protected, but this place allowed her to grow. And in that quiet understanding, the meaning of her loss began to shift. What she once believed was destruction now revealed itself as redirection. What felt like punishment now looked more like preparation. Sometimes we mourn the door that closed without realizing the entire world just opened in front of us. Sometimes what we lose had to be taken, because what waits for us requires more space than our comfort zones could ever hold. The sparrow hadn't just found a better home. She had found the version of life she never would have discovered. If the bell had never rung, this time the sparrow did not rush. She didn't build out of fear. She didn't build just to survive. She built with wisdom born from everything she had lost. Slowly, carefully, she began again. Twig by twig, she chose only the strongest branches, not the easiest to reach, but the ones that would hold through storms. She tested each piece before laying it down. She paid attention to balance, to structure, to the quiet details she once overlooked when she believed comfort alone was enough. This new nest grew wider than the first, deeper, stronger, more secure. And for the first time, she was not just building a shelter. She was building a life rooted in understanding. When it was finally finished, she settled into it as the soft breeze moved through the leaves. The stream below sang its steady song. Sunlight warmed her feathers. And instead of fear, instead of doubt, instead of longing for what used to be, she felt something new rise inside her. Peace. Not the fragile peace that depends on things staying the same, but the deep, steady peace that comes from knowing you survived change and became stronger because of it. She rested. She breathed. And gratitude filled the space where fear once lived. And then, a quiet realization gently unfolded inside her. If the bell had never rung, I would still be hiding in that narrow hollow. Safe, but limited. Protected, but unfinished. The bell that once felt like cruelty now revealed itself as a turning point. It didn't destroy her life. It redirected it. And isn't that the lesson many of us only understand in hindsight? The job that ended felt like rejection, until it led you to your real calling. The relationship that broke you felt like failure, until it taught you your worth. The season that nearly crushed you felt unbearable, until it shaped the person you are today. We rarely thank the moments that break us, but those moments often become the very reason we grow. The sparrow looked out across her new world and finally understood. Not every loss is a punishment. Not every ending is an ending. Some are invitations to rise higher than we ever imagined. And sitting there in her stronger, wider nest, she no longer feared the sound of the bell, because she now knew something powerful. Even when life shakes everything apart, it may be guiding you towards something far better than what you are trying so hard to protect. Sometimes, the very thing that tears your world down is the same thing that sets you free. The same bell that destroyed the sparrow's old home was the very force that set her free. At the time, it didn't feel like freedom. It felt like loss. It felt unfair. It felt like betrayal. But only with distance did the meaning become clear. And that's how life often works for us, too. Because we all build our own nests. We build them in our homes, the places we swear will stay forever. We build them in our jobs, the careers we believe define our worth. We build them in our relationships, the people we think we cannot live without. And just like the sparrow, we grow attached. Not only emotionally, but spiritually. We begin to believe, this is my life. This is my safety. This is permanent. Until one day, the bell rings. A job ends. A relationship breaks. A home no longer feels like home. A plan collapses without warning. Pain rushes in. Fear takes over. And suddenly, the future feels like a dark hallway with no visible door. We ask the same questions the sparrow once asked. Why me? What did I do wrong? How am I supposed to start again when everything I built is gone? But here is the truth most of us only understand in hindsight. Loss is not always the end. Very often, it is a disguised beginning. What feels like destruction may actually be redirection. What feels like punishment may be preparation. What feels like a dead end may be the moment your life finally opens wide enough for something greater. The sparrow only found the hidden garden because her old world collapsed. She only built something stronger because what she trusted before was shaken. She only discovered who she could become because she was forced to leave who she used to be. And the same is possible for you. If your world is shaking right now, if something you loved has fallen apart, if you feel lost, afraid, or unsure of what comes next, this is not your ending. This is your invitation to keep flying, to keep searching, to keep building again with more wisdom, more strength, and more truth than you had before. Because your next chapter, the one you cannot see yet, the one that feels impossible right now, may very well be the most beautiful chapter of your life. And sometimes the bell has to ring so that your wings can finally discover how far they were always meant to fly.